The MoneroTopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Exolix, a privacy-focused, non-custodial instant crypto exchange. Go to exolix.com to enjoy secure and completely anonymous swaps with no KYC or sign-up. Swap between Monero and 2,000 plus assets at the most competitive rates and with no limits. Exolix.com, your fast and secure way to privacy.
Yo, buddy, what's going on, man?
Doug's always got the shades on, man. It's cool. It works really well with the background too.
I like it. And you know they're prescription too, so I can actually see my screen a lot better. So it actually works for me. And
nice.
do they filter out blue light? I would think so, right?
Well, they're your prescriptions. I don't know.
No, well, I mean, like in general, I don't know if I added. Is that like an additional thing you do? Do sunglasses naturally filter out blue light? I guess is the question.
I don't know. I guess that's a good question. Probably only a little bit, I bet.
Yeah, I have blue light glasses, but they're not sunglasses. I didn't.
You wearing your wraparound red filter or blue filter glasses at night?
Yeah, I don't have those. I need those. Do you do that?
No, I should. I have them. I bought them to do that. Now I just change my monitors. I set them to red light.
Okay.
It's funny though. Like if I forget to do it, I'll lay down and be like, "Oh crap." I can tell like my eyeballs have been absorbing blue light for the past 2 hours.
Yeah, I got to do that on this monitor right here.
Yeah, I realized something about that could potentially, because I basically always use the red light mode, but I also use like only OLED monitors, and I realized that I could potentially be wearing out the red diodes sooner than the other ones by always having it on red light mode. So I switched to just using red light filtering glasses instead.
Yeah, I've got some really, really red glasses. Then I have some orange ones that aren't like quite so crazy. I guess you get used to it. You know, your eyes adjust and then you just like see everything in normal colors. But that like 20 to 30-minute transition is always slightly annoying.
So when are you wearing the red light glasses? Like in the morning and then at night? Or just
no,
like,
I mean, you would only wear the red light glasses at night because, you know, the sun goes down. Red light doesn't affect, I can't remember which one. It's either your rods or cones. But like red light doesn't produce that, I don't know, all the hormones that keep you up, right? That prevent you from going to sleep. All the blue light that we get at night can make it harder to get to sleep because it's preventing the production of melatonin and it's just overall like blocking your, blocking your sleep hormones.
But I thought but naturally though, we do right. If you were to wake up with the sunrise, I guess you'd be getting a hit with some red light in the morning, right? To set your circadian rhythm. Is it like red light in the morning, red light at night? I would think. I don't know.
I guess. I mean, yeah, you're definitely getting a little bit more red light from the spectrum and all the dust, which, you know, is kind of what makes the sun a more reddish color as it's setting. But I mean, you're still getting a pretty big spectrum. In the morning, it's more just about getting light. Like just the fact that you're getting light is turning on all of your, I don't know, it's just signaling to your entire hormone endocrine system that it's time to get up.
And you said you use red light for like injuries, and you think it had?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it's hard to say, right? Because I didn't like. So, for example, I pull a muscle in an arm or a pec or something like that. I'm like, all right, let me put the red light on it. And there's research to back it. Like clinically speaking, it helps. But I didn't pull both pecs, you know, and then do
so
it. So
do you do red light all the time, or just
no? I mean, probably I should. Honestly, I really probably should. It's good for you, but. Yeah, there's red light, there's infrared, and they both look red, but they're slightly different things. So you get, I think it's like 660 nanometers and 850 is like that target range where they make those IR panels. And people will get up in the morning and they'll soak in a bunch of IR. They're different. They do different wavelengths because one of them penetrates more, and so you get a little bit more deeper stimulus for like you said, your mitochondria and all that. Yeah. And then the other one is a little bit more superficial. And it's good for your skin too. So, I mean, there's definitely clinical research to back it. Like you could totally do it. I don't, but maybe I should, right? I have a panel, but
yeah, give me those wavelengths. I want those wavelengths.
You got to get the frequencies, bro. The healthy frequencies.
They're just massaging the mitochondria.
You want the nanometer wave, not the millimeter wave.
Yeah, exactly.
The reference.
I'm not sure if it's really even good for me, but I basically have that big lamp just like on all the time while I'm awake. Like even if it's not pointed at me, it like fills the room with like it's basically a localized sun in my room, right? And you
That's
want
what
your
I've been trying.
environment
Yeah,
to
I've been
be
trying to
bright.
mimic that at my office, doing the same thing, Tux. I think that makes sense because my office has like the shitty overhead, like.
Oh, like the fluorescent.
Yeah, they're not really fluorescent. I think they're LEDs, but they're
Okay,
definitely
yeah.
not full spectrum. You know, I'm getting zapped with more blue light than anything else. So
And
I'm
probably
like
a
turning.
flicker rate too.
Yeah, so I'm turning those off and then using the daylight light all day. Like you don't want to be looking to that thing all day, but I think like you said, if you use it indirectly to just light up the room, I feel like that would be better than or just a traditional like incandescent light bulb gives you pretty good wavelength. Like
Or if you have a nice big window, that can also work.
I don't in my
Okay.
in my
He's stuck in his prison cell.
yeah, you'd be surprised, but it's
Home cubicle,
yeah.
self-induced home cubicle prison.
I get out as much as I can, obviously walk around, but yeah, man, take it away with Price, buddy.
Cool,
Buddy,
yeah.
any chance we see you at Pork Fest? I know, probably not, right? You're Mexico.
I wasn't
bound.
planning on going. When is it?
It's in June.
I mean, there's always hope, right? There's always a possibility. But I wasn't planning on it. No, I don't really do the conference thing so much anymore. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, it's cool because you hang out with all your friends and whatnot. But you know, you go to so many conferences, and unless you're like there for a purpose, you know, like,
yeah,
you know, to shill. I don't want to say shill Monero, but what else are you gonna do? You got to shill it. You got to fucking maximize. You got to pump those bags, get those numbers up. But yeah, I mean, if you're there as a
That's
booth,
right.
as you know, like with a purpose, then it makes a lot of sense to go to a lot of conference. You know, you're the presenter, right? You're helping people learn. But yeah, I just like it's cool. Like I like conferences; they're cool. You get to hang out with your bros.
Yeah.
But I just like don't make a habit of going to them that often.
Yeah, well, luckily you save yourself from MoneroTopia, so that's enough. we'll take that once a year.
I love that it's in Mexico too, man. That's like such an
Yeah.
easy.
We
it's
literally
easy to
come
make
there
that reach.
for body. We're like, if we want body to attend, we're gonna have to move this shit to Mexico.
Oh man, I appreciate the lie. It's a very sweet lie on
It
Valentine's
plays
Day.
a small. You'd be surprised. Plays a small part. Small part.
Saint Valentine said, "Smash equals like, guys. Smash that like." All right,
Nice.
so yeah, I think probably everybody noticed we're doing pretty good. Sitting here at $231 on the Monero price, and with the up, right? It just feels like there's this buoyancy to the price. It just doesn't want to go down. Everything else is sucking shit and dying in front of our eyes. Not really. It's really not that bad, but man, sometimes I swear I won't look at price for a couple days, and I'll get on Twitter and I'll be like, "Wow, things must have really crashed, or they must have really pumped." And I'm like, "Wait, it's basically the same. What the hell?" So people get pretty emotional about price. Obviously, at the moment, I think we have good reasons to have positive vibes about the Monero price at this particular moment. Yeah, so obviously, as you can see, higher lows all the way through. Monero is going towards the upside. We can even look at the relative prices. So, for example, XMR divided by total 3, right? So we can look at the XMR market cap relative to total 3. Actually, that is not the XMR market cap. Let's go to, that was it. Okay. Yeah, XMR divided by total 3. For whatever reason on this chart, I had divided the price. Wow, that looks terrible. Let's go to, we are on logarithmic. Wow. Did I do something wrong here? What day? We're on the daily. Maybe I should have prepared this. This actually looks really bad. So total 3 market cap must be doing good. Man, I feel like there's some mistake here. Yeah, that's the mistake. Total 3. Yeah, so that, what the hell? I'm sorry, guys, to keep us bogged down here. Let's just go
over,
to crypto
guys.
cap.
Monero's going to 0.
There we go. It pulled up the wrong ticker. Yeah, so we need to go to crypto cap. Yeah, it's over. Pack it in. All right, so let's go to let's add that wave magic back in there. And okay. Come on. Oh, yeah, of course. Artifact of the wave magic script. I have to multiply by a large number sometimes when it gets too small. Here we go. Regardless, you can see the point is that Monero is doing well relative to the rest of the shitcoin market crap, and Monero has been like relatively good. So yeah, hopefully we can keep going up. The problem is that there's always a new shitcoin. There's always more market cap to go around for just nonsense. You can artificially pump market caps to levels that the liquidity wouldn't justify. Like, you know, most of these coins, there's no chance that any significant liquidity could be pulled out of that market without crashing the price. they keep the prices levied and buoyed to try and bring in new suckers. So that's why it's important for us to use the thing, right? That's why you got to use it. You use it, you win. You create the natural liquidity that's necessary to support a real organic market, that's necessary to support price in an organic way, not a bullshit way. And that's what we have, guys. That's what we have with the Monero price. We have an organic price. And let's go to the weekly. Let's look at the long time frame and look at this washout. Look at this stabilization that happened. Effectively, we had the pump, and probably a lot of this pump in the last bull market was actually induced by the market makers themselves to do kind of like a pump and dump, a rug, as a means of controlling price. So when Monero was performing early on, before anything else was performing, again, that was them preparing their bags before the major run so that they could manage the Monero price into the bull run and keep it out of the limelight. Nobody cared about crypto before Bitcoin got above the all-time high. So that was their opportunity to load up some bags and then unload them slowly on the market. The point is, and again, that's all speculative, so you can tell me that I'm speculating wrong if you want in the comments, whatever. But the point is that we had a very long period of washout here. I mean, we're looking at a period of about 2 to 3 years here, right? Where effectively they were trying to smash the price down. It's funny because I was thinking about this morning, actually. In most cases, what you have is some shitcoin pumped to ungodly levels, 500x or whatever, and then it just dies. And at some point it wants to die some more. And then market makers and or founders and or, fuckheads, they come in and they put these artificial stops in the bottom and they create like an accumulation range and they make it look like, hey, the thing's bottoming. And then they create the pressure towards the upside to get people, bullish again. And I can't say that I don't participate in that, because I do. Not as a market maker, but as a pleb, and I see the patterns that these guys use and I buy the shitcoin. Like, what are you going to do? Like, they want to give me free money. I'm going to take it. But the point is that with Monero, they did rather quite the opposite. They used all of their firepower. They used everything that they had to try and suppress this price, to try and push it down as much as they could. And we got price attack from every single angle, right? They did the fractional reserve. Then when they couldn't max that anymore, they started just delisting it. They're like, oh, we can't do much more fractional reserves. Just fucking delist it. So they did everything they could to push our price down. And so we had to establish an actual organic, like grassroots supported price levels that couldn't be pushed down any further. And that's what happened here, right? That's what we were looking at with the Binance delisting. It was like, hey, that's the last major freaking thing that has to come out here to, that they can do. And it's like, once we've accepted the worst of the pain and you've Buddha Zen'd your way into not suffering through the pain and just accepting it, like accepting the reality, that's when the worst of it isn't. Like, that's the worst of it. Then it ends, right? Then you can actually fucking start making some progress and move on with your life. And that's what Monero is doing. Like, we've just had continuous more higher lows, and this is all based and born out of grassroots support of the price. And it's reflected in the fact that we see so many more people entering the Monero ecosystem. Everybody's talking about it. And while you still have the maximalist hatred out there, there are maxis leaving that camp of Monero hatred and saying, all right, maybe it's actually okay. And we're seeing a little bit more and more of that. And so it's great. So our price has been moving up, I think, in large part due to the organic support. Now, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, and I don't want to say that, it's moonshot is our next thing. That would actually be probably, if we see this thing pump to $500 all of a sudden, that may or may not actually be real organic action, right? That's probably more like organic action plus front running, as money comes onto the exchanges and market makers see that, then they start front running the Monero price, et cetera. And then they can dump later. So anyways, what we really want to see in an ideal sense is just like light positive action. We just want to see this thing continue, to kind of just move up slowly, steadily. And, there's a lot to be said for that, because that's how they manage the stock market. They manage the stock market by not letting it drop too much. Every now and then you get these crazy washouts every decade or so, but they otherwise support the price of the stock market, and they just keep it steadily, slowly marching up, because they know people don't imagine scam when something steadily goes up. They think, oh, that's just natural growth, right? And so we would really, really rather see natural growth in Monero's price. We don't want to see crazy price vacillations. That makes it harder for merchants to accept. That reduces its usability, right? You need something stable to be used as currency. The more stable it is, the better it is at a currency. So we prefer eventually, Monero's price to hit some high level and then slowly, stably just keep track with inflation. We don't want to see it considered a risk asset. That's far in the future. Okay, continuing on, we have XMR versus BTC continuing to press towards the upside. This trend line apparently still seems to be useful for us. Again, this is a descriptive trend line. It's not prescriptive. Not nearly a strong enough trend. We're only on the 8-hour candles right here. So, but yeah, things continue to go to the upside. We've sort of established that the standard deviation cluster. So again, this white cluster right here, that's the standard deviation. Sorry, those are the moving average. The moving average cluster, right? These white bands, we sort of oscillated in between the lower part of that, and it looks like we're getting ready to sort of oscillate in the upper part of that, right, between the upper standard deviation and the lower the moving average cluster. Apparently I can't talk today. All right, so XMR BTC price continues to march slowly towards the upside. Same thing with XMR versus ETH. Yeah, so we expect this chart really to make these upper bands here. At that point, that even might actually be a good opportunity to, so the XMR versus ETH chart, I'm speculating here, this is brainstorming. It might even be reasonable to say once we get into these bands, expect alt season to start, right? ETH sort of represents in a lot of ways like altcoins in general, not totally. It's a lot of that's moving towards Sol. Sol is more useful in terms of just pure degeneracy and meme coins and whatnot. But so maybe we'll include some other market caps in there. But in general, maybe we could say that we expect some fundamental shift to happen as Monero makes it towards these upper bands. Again, that's brainstorming, that's tentative. If you have any thoughts on that, feel free to shout out in the comments. If you got something useful to say, or hey, maybe even if it's not useful, that's fine. Say it anyways. Tell your friend, say it to yourself, tell your friend, and then shut the fuck up. That's what they taught me in the military, actually. And it was actually very useful, especially since I was young and retarded at the time. Now I'm old and still retarded, but a little bit less so. Okay, so we're moving on here to Bitcoin, the abusive daddy of the markets, of the crypto markets. And yeah, Bitcoin has been having some problems. It's struggling. Oh my God, we're still below 100,000. We're still at 98,000. What are we going to do? Well, what you're going to do if you're a trader is you're going to trade this range, right? You see this range here. It even fooled me. I thought, hey, maybe we're about to go up here. Hell, I might have even thought about taking a long there. It wouldn't have been on big leverage. It would have been a little bit of a long, and I would have put my stops. I probably would have put my stops right around the bottom of that standard deviation band there. And then I would have gotten stopped, right? I would have gotten stopped out. So, yeah, we're just going to have to wait a little bit longer, guys. It seems like Bitcoin's not quite ready to go. Crypto is not quite ready to go. I don't know. What do you want me to say? Eventually this thing should go up. We still see the gold price moving up. Gold is doing fantastic, spectacular, fabulous, all of the Trump positive words, positive adjectives being inserted right there. But we did put on new all-time highs this past week for gold. Let's go down to the daily and you can see that a little bit better. Yeah. So, and here's another thing, on the local pattern here, on the local wave magic, right? So you've got these guys right here. You have the short-term standard deviation prime. Again, it's just a derivative of standard deviation. It's like an acceleration metric. Think of it, if for those of you that know calculus, it's like taking a derivative or a second derivative, right? If standard deviation is the first derivative, the purple bands are like the derivative of that. And it's not a multiplier by 2. Multiplying by 2 or 3, the third standard deviation is arbitrary, right? Which is why I invented this in the first place, because whether you want to use the 21-day moving average of the 50 or the 100 or the 30-day, right, or the 200, it is arbitrary. You could choose anyone. It doesn't matter. Maybe psychologically some of them stand out, but it's arbitrary. So you just overlay them all. Same thing here. So anyways, I don't like arbitrary multipliers in statistical metrics. If you can avoid it, it's better to use other metrics. And so the purple bands are an acceleration metric effectively. You can think of it that way. Yeah, so anyways, what we see typically is that price should want to tend to continue following in this band structure, right? So We've topped out a little bit here in gold. It wouldn't surprise me to have a little bit of a pullback, something like that over the next week or so, and then only to come back towards the top side. The point that's most relevant for us is that gold is continuing to make all-time highs. It continues to go up, and it's difficult for me to think that in the current environment, with the M2 money supply continuing to increase, it's difficult for me to think that gold is just going up for no reason and that the markets aren't going to follow eventually. So yeah, I mean, right now, pressure release valve and gold happening. Where should we be looking, right? Where are we looking in the big, broad picture for gold? What do we want to see for the topping action? Where do we think this thing could top out? Well, I think this purple band right here, this is like the lifetime continuously calculated prime standard deviation. Wow, what a mouthful. I'm sure nobody understands what that means except for me, but don't worry about it. Just know that purple band equals top. So, but you'll notice this purple band continues rising. So at some point, gold's going to tag that band, and it's going to be glorious. At that point, I'll probably recommend that you guys flip your gold into some kind of other hard asset like real estate, or property, or more Monero. It depends on what the markets are doing there. Maybe just never sell your gold. Maybe it's, it's your backup option. If you only have 5% of your net worth in gold, yeah, then maybe just like, well, shit, I'm not going to sell. Fuck it. Like, why would I do that? It's still my backup, right? It's still my backup option. And who knows? Maybe the hyperinflation hits. It's not going to. So stop looking for it. That's not how markets work. You underestimate your enemy if you think the dollar is collapsing and it's about to die in the hyper. And it's not. Like, it's just not. These guys are smarter than that. They've managed this shit for over 100 years. It's not going to just collapse. Like, if it'll only collapse if they want it to, right? So unless you have some special like insight into when they want to collapse the shit, if you have that special insight, then maybe you do know when the dollar collapses. But otherwise, it's not going to. It doesn't have to unless they want to. There's actually a correction I need to make on something I said a lot. So I want to go backwards in time here a little bit. The Saudi agreement did not expire. That was just like a widely misreported news story, and they fucking got me. They fucking scammed me. They rugged me on that story. That's not how that works, apparently. There was no like official, memorandum of agreement or whatever that expired. Yes, the Saudis, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I need to go check this out more, but yes, the Saudis are selling their oil in something other than the dollar, right? I think they're using some amount of yuan now. I really need to go check that, but it's not a lot, right? It's not huge. It's still predominantly the dollar, but there was no agreement there that expired. It was like, there was kind of like this reporting of some meeting happened, and like there was like a kernel of truth there, but that's not really the story. So, but regardless, it is the case that we have seen moves, globally speaking, to do some amount of trade outside of the dollar. It is true that there is a yuan ruble bilateral trade agreements between China and Russia to settle outside of the dollar. So there is still validity to the notion that the United States does want to continue dollar power projection, and Tether is still rolled up into that. It's just that you don't have that extra thing with the expiration of the Saudi agreement, the fake news awards. I have to actually thank, let me tip my hat here to James Corbett and the Corbett Report for actually reporting that on his fake news awards for 2024. So anyways, just wanted to correct
really
that
funny.
since, oh yeah, you watched that? Yeah. Yeah. Corbett's the best, man. He's like, him and Whitney Webb to me are like the absolute two best reporters out there. All right, so let's see. I know I've kind of jumped back and forth here. That's okay. We can have a schizophrenic price report today. No big deal. We can go to the Z-scores and see that Monero is still a top performer. There's some other shitcoin in blue here. We won't mention its name. It seems to also be performing lately. The Harry Potter magic privacy coin, the magical, perhaps not so magical, can be defeated. Mimble, whatnot, who knows, right? Like there were some reports that could be the case, maybe not, but nobody uses it anyways. It's the same problem as Zcash. Like nobody uses Zcash privacy. Those that do don't have great privacy, and like this is why it's still in the exchanges, because they're like, well, nobody's using it, so who cares if the privacy is there? Like it's not really private if you don't have a big crowd to hide in. Let's see. Let's talk about Bitcoin dominance. Yeah. So we are starting to reach maximum peak levels of altcoin dejection. Everyone is crying in the streets with salty Doge tears about where their alt season has gone and how come it's different this time. And maximalists are celebrating with their dicks out, waving it in everyone's face about how Bitcoin's about to hyper Bitcoinize the altcoin space and everything is just going to die. Okay, whatever, guys. Anyways, we had a big hammer wick right here. Now, could this be hypothetically, just the pressure towards the upside that Bitcoin is about to just crush everything, and this wick is evidence that the next candles are coming further? Maybe, but probably not, because we're about to close the week here down, in which case you would end up calling this a hammer, right? That's a hammer spike something or other. I can't remember this. Maybe that's not exactly the right phraseology. Anyways, whatever. This is a very classic pattern where you have a wick towards the upside that is not followed up in the next candle or so with more upside action. And it spells, hey, we tried to make it and we failed. We fell back down. This very similar kind of pattern happened right here. You had a couple wick spikes, not nearly as strong, but effectively there was a couple wicks up. And then what happened, right? Price came to the downside for a period of time. Bitcoin, again, is still trying to show its strength, assert whatever. But again, guys, we're still in that window where it does make sense. Like it's not too crazy terrible to expect, that altcoin is still, a little bit of time period away. It could still be a couple more weeks. It could still be a month, right? But we're starting to get that point of feeling the maximum altcoin rejection. I'm seeing it from the bigger accounts now. So there's probably opportunity there, right? Usually when the when the masses are going one direction, there's a good sign that the rug is about to be pulled the other direction. So in this case, the rug's about to get pulled on Bitcoin dominance and, shitcoins and altcoins alike, because they're not the same thing. Shitcoins and altcoins alike are probably going to perform, maybe maybe to the tune of minus 30% dominance. Who knows? Still could be some time, but we just need to see. And this is actually happening across the board. We're seeing like this kind of hesitation, this sort of flattening action across the board in risk. So for example, here we're looking at the S&P 500. And again, as we've talked about many times before, let's go to the 3-month and I'll show you guys again. This is the trend line everyone's looking at. Right here is the 1929 blow off top, right? That's the first like major stock market boom and bust cycle with the Fed. Was created in 1913, and stock market flat, and then they printed and then crashed it, and then they started the cycle, right? They began the exponential of the stock market after that. So effectively, you connect the 1929 to the dot-com boom, and here we go. We got this line here. Everybody knows what it is, and on the daily, it doesn't look so prominent. You're just like, oh, okay, cool line, bro. Like, I don't understand why that's significant. It's extremely, extremely significant. So yeah, this guy right here. So right now the S&P is still kind of like waffling back and forth. Do we really want to break it? Is it really broken? Can it really be that easy? Probably it can. If the M2 money supply decides to continue going up, then probably it can be that easy. Let's go. LFG, where we got M2 money supply. You'll notice the M2 money supply continues, right? It's marching up again. We still haven't busted past the 2021 levels, but it is marching up. And as long as it's marching up, that means that economic expansion is in play. Although the balance sheet continues to drop. So that's an interesting factor there. The Fed continues to sell its balance sheet. I believe this is primarily that they're selling is composed of the mortgages that they bought back in 2008 to make sure that we actually don't have the death of the dollar and that we don't actually have a deflationary death spiral of the money system. And yeah, they're just not going to let that happen again. Like, they know how to make it not happen or how to prevent it from happening. So it's just not going to happen. So yeah, the S&P is kind of waffling. It's been waffling, but I mean, the time period on this isn't that long. Let's take a look. Maximum, you could say 66 bars. So that's 66 days, right? That's just 2 months. But that's kind of what it feels like with crypto. We've been waffling for a couple months. Like, we're having a hard time getting past that 100,000 mark on the Bitcoin, and 146 bars here on the NASDAQ. NASDAQ does look like it's starting to try and make it past, but it's still like, okay, like, yes, it has beat this local high right here. And maybe it's kind of established that local high as sort of the support, the floor. But, this does still look like it's being capped out. And these lines down here they're both at this point descriptive and prescriptive. They represent two things. Just because they're so long, the strength of these lines has now existed for 2 years, right? And that's giving us a very good expected channel, right? A good expectation of how price should generally move for the NASDAQ. So yeah, I mean, everything kind of seems to be in a bit of a holding period. We are looking at the reverse repos again coming down. We had another drop this past week. We're looking at $50 billion. This thing's starting to run dry. So I wonder if some of the hesitancy there is related to that. As we talked about a week or two ago, part of the hesitancy was, the AI bubble is kind of driving a lot of this. And although AI is extremely important and is the future of humanity, and maybe also the death of humanity, could be the case. But at any rate, it is the future. But with R1, with DeepSeek and all that, NVIDIA took a hit, but people are kind of like, yeah, well, maybe that was overblown, whatever. So NVIDIA's basically come back a significant amount. But yeah, the hit that NVIDIA experienced was a significant part of that kind of like stop and wait that happened on the stock market. Because obviously, a lot of these gains in the stock market are being driven by the fewest stocks, right? There's just a small group of stocks comprise some outsized massive proportion of the entire stock market. So but again, how do we tie this together? We want to tie everything together. We want to have a cogent picture of what's happening. We're looking at gold and we're saying, listen, everything else is in a holding period, but gold continues to perform, right? So what's up with that? Well, they don't want to ever let gold outperform the stock market over long periods of time. This is going to reverse at some point. So if there's genuine pressures pushing gold up, and there probably are, then it means that they're going to need to print some money and pump the stock market at some point here. Most likely, again, if we're going to see some massive liquidity expansion event, it would be totally modus operandi to see gold hit some big point, have a market crash, like the macro crash, a limited macro crash followed by liquidity expansion. Gold comes up, and then for years we'll just fucking slowly bleed out while the rest of the stock market pumps. That's been the pattern. I can't tell you the exact timeline that I would expect that should happen. But, again, looking at the signals as we always do, looking at the bond market, we're still not seeing anything in the bond market that looks super, super like imminent, right? Like, yes, this is the pattern that we've seen for a long time. We're still waiting on it. Still waiting on that macro crash, Chicken Little here. It's going to happen. It's coming. Yeah. But that's also what Noah said before the flood, and everyone is laughing at him. But he had a boat and they all drowned. So, yep. Be careful if the earth tilts over on its side, you might drown. And right now the earth is not about to tilt over on its side. This is still the same pattern. It's still like the Fed is slowly going to lower rates and bonds are going to do something. But whenever we see big violent moves in the bond market, that's our sign, right? That's our sign that it's coming. You'll notice that we are getting pretty close. Like if we look at equivalent timelines here. So let's start from when the economy caught a cold, right before the economy caught a cold, in July, August of 2019, the Fed was lowering rates, bonds were coming down with them. And then that was about 146 days until we saw the actual, the symptoms arriving, right? Until you started coughing and the poor economy started running a fever, and then everything crashed. So if we do 146 days, I know we've done this before, but just to show you guys again, look down at the bottom, you will see that looks like April to me, right? End of March, April. Now, you can't just overlay, said the Zoomer, you can't just overlay one time frame onto the next time frame. That's not, it's not like perfectly analogous, but certainly, there is something to compare. It's all that we have, right? It's all that we have. So we could also come over here and do this for 2008. Obviously, 2008 was a much more severe kind of systemic type of macro crash before they had implemented all of the quantitative easing and the quantitative whatever that they needed to just like support everything. But again, before the real drops started in earnest, so which I believe was somewhere around early 2008. But then the actual crash happened over here. So that was like 277 days. So the actual crash really, really started. But the market was losing significant amounts during this time frame. So again, like 110 bars. We would need to overlay the S&P on this. We're not going to do that right now. 147 bars. So, I mean, again, guys, we're starting to really enter that, like the historical pattern of the window. I said, hey, the window opened right around November in my mind. That was where the window was like the possibility was beginning. But, it's a broad window, right? We're looking at months that this could happen. Sometimes it happens earlier. Sometimes it happens later. But anyways, like the signs are still there. We're still progressing, keep it in the back of your mind. We're not there yet. Look for violent moves in the bond market, particularly to the downside again. So like if you're midweek and you don't have my guiding voice here, not sure that anyone should be guided by my voice here when it comes to price and trading, but whatever. Supposedly I know something. If it's midweek, if it's like Tuesday and the bond market is just absolutely getting annihilated, then start thinking to yourself, wow, these are historically massive drops in the bond market. Maybe there's problems in the market, right? Maybe there's not all as well. So, and then you can protect yourself. You can sell your more degenerate shitcoins, whatever. If any of you are holding them, you can, if you're a stock market bro, you can take out a binary option, far out of the money and spend a 0.5% of your net worth on a binary option. And if shit drops, you can protect yourself and then rebuy the market at the bottom ish. So, yeah, let's see. Oh, I wanted to go back to gold one more time. There's one thing that I kind of forgot to show you guys. So we are going to clear the wave magic. That's only going to slow down the chart. But I just wanted to show you the lifetime chart here and give you the bigger, broader perspective of what's happening in the gold market. So we come back here to when Nixon protected us against the speculators happened back here in 1971. And then gold just smashed to the upside because they let gold float. And then so the blow off from the Nixon protecting us against the speculators against the US dollar happened right here, right? So we draw our first line there in 1980. And then the 2011 blow off top in gold born on the massive printing, basically the .com and the 2008 crisis where they printed a shitload of money. Gold necessarily had to respond there and then blew off in 2011. So we connect those right there. Those are our connection points, which is how we draw this rising wedge, right? This is a rising wedge. And I know there's a lot of lines drawn on this chart, but that's just what charts are. What do you want? So anyways, we effectively came here. I say we because, we are gold holders. I hope that all of you have some gold, even if it's just a few coins. Anyway, so yeah, this was a prominent area to look for pause, to look for, pullback. Are we just going to smash through it? I didn't want to see us. I didn't want to see gold smash through this line, because resistances that are not respected on the way up are not supports that are respected on the way down. Again, it's that whole, you want steady gains. You want nice, reasonable, steady gains over time. You don't want to be making, insane amounts of money really, really quickly, unless you know how to sell and actually take that money and run, which most people don't. Okay, so the point is here that gold has broken that rising wedge. It did a really good job of finding some consolidation exactly where it should have, and now it's moving towards the upside. Continued upside action here on gold sets this line as a solid floor to look for into the future. And notice it's a rising line. So, somewhere in the future, we'll probably tag this line again. It'll actually probably break down below that line, like shortly, briefly, as a way of trying to induce panic in the markets. But yeah, so let's add the statistics summary again here. Again, this is the continuously computed standard upper standard deviation prime, which is this purple line. This purple line again is my target now for gold at this point in a long-term fashion. In shorter terms, we're still going to have to deal with there are still going to be things to deal with, like other resistances to deal with in gold. Let me show you those really quick. Okay, so this guy right here, right? This is a very reasonable nearer term resistance to look for. But notice it's a rising resistance, right? Rising resistances, when you talk about resistances and you're like, well, this is a resistance, like, okay, well, yeah, but it is, but it's also rising. So like you could try and short the market there, or you could try and sell your gold. But one of the things that can happen is you can tag that line. It can be resistance, and then you can just continue traveling up in that channel, right? You could even do something like hit that, kind of travel up there for a while, maybe take a pullback and then do that. Like the pullbacks might be less than you think. So anyways, just giving you guys a little bit of ideas and thoughts here on the gold chart. If you want to degenerately trade it, or if you're like, you're looking for points, hey, I actually do want to sell my gold because I'm going to buy a house, right? Like, okay, that's a reasonable reason to sell your gold. So you might be trying to look for your maximum opportunity. Well, near term, it would be along this purple band here. So, maybe like, let's just call it 3,200-ish, 3,400-ish, right? These are rising lines, right? These are dynamic lines. So, yeah. All right. Let's go back to Monero here really quick and take a look at the transaction counts, because the transaction counts are increasing. They're quite good. We have gone from, 25,000. Now we seem to be oscillating around the 30,000 point, and with some upside potential, right? So this thing could continue meandering on the way up. We would hope to see that. So continue using it, continue with XMR Bazaar, continue with the XMR chats. Actually, which I haven't checked. Let's see here. Nope, no XMR chats. Okay, next, let's go to the mining difficulty, or the hash rate per day, because this chart is a beautiful chart. It's a wonderful chart. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves it. And it's continued to go up. We continue to hit new all-time highs on the XMR hash rate, and it's doing so steadily. Interesting. It looks like the price is steadily going up. The hash rate is steadily going up. It's almost like we have organic new adoption. Wonderful. Okay, so yeah, that's a cool thing to see. Meanwhile, we could take a look really quick here at the privacy shitcoins, and what are they doing? They're doing fuck all. They're doing shit for nothing. So Firo down, Sano unable to recover, Pirate Chain managed to stave off some like massive, looked like it was about to crash and burn and die. Probably some market makers and the founders came in and supported this price a little bit, crossing their fingers for a new bull market to emerge, a new altcoin bull market to emerge, and this thing to start moving towards glorious heights. Wouldn't expect that, wouldn't hold my breath. Darrow falling further. Zcash round tripping almost, not totally round tripping, but definitely not looking good. Like, looks like crap, right? It's just doing nothing. So yeah, privacy altcoins looking like crap. Monero doing quite well, relatively speaking to that. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ versus Bitcoin. That was something I wanted to show you guys today. Is this the chart? It is, but not actually. Should be. All right, let's just fix this. Oh, you have to use a mathematical operator. All right, yeah, I just wanted to show you guys that Bitcoin is sitting here relative to the NASDAQ at its previous all-time highs, right? So if we drop a line right here, horizontal line, you'll see that Bitcoin, in terms of the NASDAQ, right, dividing by the NASDAQ, because you're like, well, Bitcoin is going to decimate all assets and it's going to hyper-Bitcoinize and there's no other asset to be in. okay, yeah, well, except for the largest asset that everybody buys, which is tech stocks, if you can't beat that, then like, what was the point? There's more risk in Bitcoin, right? If you take more risk, you need more gains. Otherwise, your risk-adjusted returns are just less. It's just that simple, right? And the Nasdaq goes up far more consistently than Bitcoin does, and it does so like in reasonable stepwise fashion, whereas Bitcoin goes up in these very scammy ways where it just pumps massively and then falls and pumps massively and then chops sideways. So, anyways, whatever. The point is that yeah, you do need to beat the Nasdaq if you want to claim to be winning in Bitcoin. And right now, okay, it is beating the Nasdaq since the bottom of the bear market. That makes sense. Right now, it's effectively, again, as we talked about, the theme of this price report here is kind of holding pattern, right? Things are just kind of like chopping sideways. Everything's kind of waiting. It looks to me like the macro situation is going to supply more gains to the market. At some point, it's just a matter of when. Maybe there's some big washout, right? They could rug everything first. Seems to me more likely they're going to pump and then rug, right? Pump and rug. That seems to be like what they do. So I don't know. Maybe the pump is right around the corner. Maybe it's tomorrow. Maybe it's in a few weeks or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I'm telling you, there's pump coming, I guess. Really, what I'm saying is it's difficult for me to believe this is the end of the bull market. So like, even if there's a macro crash in the middle of the bull market, which would be funny, but totally plausible. Like, it's still not the end. Like, don't sell your bags. Like, if you got bags, don't be selling them. Like, it's not a wrong thing to take profit, take a little bit of money off the table, have some cash on the side in case the macro crash comes. But I'm telling you guys, like, I'm mostly in the markets with some cash on the side here. I am not mostly cash waiting for this macro crash. That would be a big mistake, right? To keep a shitload of cash and not be riding the markets. You got to keep keep some sticks in the fire there. So anyways, yeah, Bitcoin is sitting here effectively relative, Bitcoin BTC divided by the Nasdaq is at its all-time highs, kind of waiting, kind of, resistance here. This is good though. Like, you would look at this chart and you would say, hey, this is actually not so bad. What you really want to do is get on the positive side of this. You really want to get on the positive side of that, which really gives you a good reason to think that, hey, you could be going up pretty soon. So I'm sure there's other stuff I had on my mind that I saw this week, but I feel like there's like one more thing, but I don't remember exactly what it is. So I'm not going to drag this thing on any further. Check the comments one more time. I don't see anything. I don't think I see anything. I think we maybe have one. I don't know if that was new or not. So I'll let Tux handle that one if that is the case. All right, guys. Yeah, I guess that's about it. Dixie continuing to pull back a little bit. Okay. Yeah, that's. I would kind of think that the Dixie pulling back should have fueled a little bit more rise and risk. It seems to have only fueled more of a rise in gold. Okay. At the moment, I would be looking at this chart and I would be saying, hey, these should be support areas for the dollar index. At the same time, it's an index. So like, it doesn't trend, right? It tends to stay range bound to some extent. So you have to understand the difference between a market that is an inflation-based asset that goes up with inflation versus something that is a trend-based market. The dollar index relative to other currencies, in large part, 95% is range bound, not trend based, because currencies oscillate relative to each other, but they tend to stay in reasonable, especially for the first world economies, right? The euro versus the dollar versus the Australian dollar versus the Canadian dollar. Is that what the Canadians have? A dollar? Whatever, the Canadian currency, soon to be America, soon to be Greenland, Mexico, Gulf of America, whatever. Anyways, okay, I'm done, guys. That's it. That's all I got for you. Mr. Tux, Mr. Doug, please take it away from me.
Thank you
Can't
so
be
much,
trusted anymore.
buddy. Big
Thank you,
gains on the way as scheduled by our overlords.
Yes, you will get your gains when they say you get your gains.
Oops, wrong way out. There we go. That's right. All right, well, I think we're going to go ahead and move into the news. Thank you, as always, Body. Monero to the moon, definitely.
Yeah, Monero price looking good. Nice and steady. Steady she goes.
To the moon over 500 years, because it's a stable coin. So.
Yes.
All right, thanks, Body. We'll get into the news.
All right, guys. See you next week.
I did want to ask Body the odds of the U.S. government moving to a gold-backed currency. Is that at all within the realm of possibilities?
Is zero a possibility? I don't see why they would do it. Like, what impetus do they have to do that? Like, what possible reason would there be to do that?
Would it even be possible to do? I see people saying like it's not even possible to do.
No, it's possible. You could say that the dollar is going to be backed by gold. I mean, it kind of is. Like,
we used to.
The Federal Reserve in Fort Knox allegedly has like 8,000 tons of gold, or maybe it's 10,000 now. So I mean, in a way, like, gold is a significant portion of global reserves. It's not the major, like the largest portion, but it is a large portion of reserves. So you could kind of say that the dollar is partially backed by gold in the fact that the Federal Reserves, the reserves on the basis of which they have printed all this excess fiat, is done on the basis of the gold that is in reserves, plus the other assets that they now keep there. But no, it's not a one-to-one backing, and I can't see any reason why they would make that a one-to-one backing. I think it could be done. Like, I mean, anything could be done. I just don't see any reason why they would do it. Like, it doesn't serve their power interests. Like, it doesn't help them control the economy. It doesn't help them decide which corporations to select to, to run the panopticon. So,
yeah. I don't know what, unless Trump had some crazy political power move reason.
If you had like an honest president and an honest Congress and an honest system in general. So, I mean, I know we're already pretty far here in fantasy land because it takes more than just a prez to make that happen. Mm-hmm. Then hypothetically, you could limit the fractional reserve. You could bring those numbers down. Right now it's like 9-1, I think, but effectively it's infinity to 1. The real infinity the real everything divided by infinity is actually everything divided by fiat, not Bitcoin. Anyways, so they could hypothetically start rolling those back and start placing greater caps on the fractional reserve ratios that banks are allowed to engage in. They could plus up the gold reserves. They could march the economy in that direction, but I really do wonder about like the potential for deflationary spiral if that does happen. I think mathematically the system has to continue to expand because unless you want to see massive recession, depression, where like all of these bankruptcies happen and businesses go under because there's not enough currency to serve the needs of the economy. Like, that's what happened in the Great Depression, right? They contracted the money supply at exactly the time that things were already experiencing a contractile phase. And so there was just no money. There was literally no fiat, no nothing, no units of account for people to do business with. So like the system it can't unwind. They have to continue because the thing is you have to pay the interest on old debts with interest from new debt. Like mathematically, there's no way to overcome that except for a depression, except for a massive contraction of the economy. So the best that we could kind of hope for is just transition to a different monetary system, simultaneous competing monetary systems where people sort of just move from one into the other, right? And that's what we hope cryptocurrency will ultimately be. That's the only way out of that fucking this exponential fiat printing mathematics is just to like slowly migrate to something better.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah.
All right.
I would just love to see it just to piss off all the Bitcoin maxis. To ironically watch them yell and scream and be pissed off that we're moving to a gold standard. Like, I thought this is what you wanted. I thought this is what you wanted, guys. Why are you all complaining?
No, but gold can be printed from asteroids, but you can't print Bitcoin, except for when the security budget runs out.
They would lose their shit if Trump, like, that's why it would just be funny. I don't know. Maybe Trump is the ultimate troll.
Oh, I forgot to mention Millet. I think he accidentally participated in a shitcoin because I don't think he knows what he's doing in crypto. But Millet, the people he was working with, or the people that he's working with,
the tweet was deleted. Yeah, we'll bring that up in the news.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's kind of funny. Yeah, it looks to me like the leaders of nations are not hyper Bitcoinizing. Didn't the El Salvador Bukele? Didn't they like they
they pulled back?
Yeah, we have that in the news too. I think. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear about it. I will be lolzing over here.